just asking Imelda if what your thoughts are on how Lynn engaged with the metaphor of the fifth province as we were attempting to articulate it. Well, our version of the fifth province, or maybe she constructed her own version.
Knowing Lynn, I have a hunch that she did that. She loved it. I mean, that was my expression, that she loved it. And she had us all in a cast of characters. You know, I mean, you were one of the most genius therapists in the world, and I was the lion who was also a mystic, and I can't remember what metaphor she had for Phil, but she had us all cast as characters in this drama of the fifth province, which was kind of fun.
Can you just tell, for the sake of the film, just remind us of the fifth province? Okay. Either one of you.
So tell us the myth of the fifth province, yes.
Well, we stole the myth from Mark Hederman and Richard Carney. Mark Hederman is the abbot of a Cistercian Benedictine monastery in the south of Ireland, and Richard Carney is younger than us and is professor of philosophy. Was in UCD, and particularly of European philosophy. That was his whole big thing, and narrative philosophy in particular. But he moved to the States and he's in Boston College now, and they brought out a biannual journal when Richard was very young. He was only in his 20s, for 10 years, and it was called the Book of Irish Studies. And what they did was that they brought all the different traditions on the island, across economics, politics, psychology, philosophy, literature, art, anthropology, whatever.
Yeah, but it coincided with the time of great political upheaval because of the Northern Troubles, as they were called.
And in the north it was called Fieldbit Day, and in the south it was called the Cranebag. And it was all these different voices who they wanted to juxtapose all the different stories that were Ireland. So it broke up a single narrative of a unified Ireland into an Ireland of multiple identities, really, and multiple languages and multiple experiences. And that was our Bible, but the core metaphor of that was the fifth province. And I think probably it was Mark Hederman who developed the myth for the Cranebag, and that was that in Ireland there were 4 political provinces. But at the centre of the country, there was a hill called the Hill of the Kings, or Ishnok, the Hill of Ishnok. And there was supposedly the imagined site of the fifth province, which stood in counterpoint to Tara, which was the seat of the High Kings. And the story or the myth was that it was a druidic site where the kings and chieftains of the various provinces and tribes, clans, came together to sort out difficulties not by fighting. So they would lay aside their arms and their shields and come and talk and receive counsel from the druids. And so it was a place where oppositions came, and rather than collide, they discoursed. And we liked that because we were working with families who had disclosed sexual abuse at the time, so it was quite fragmented.
But we're just talking about the fifth province now, yeah. The notion, so it was framed this way with the 4 provinces, and the idea that was conflict, and they came to negotiate. It was a place of work, so it wasn't an empty place. It was a place of work, but it was a place of work in that one had to identify what the issues were, and they had to be identified in a related kind of way to other issues, so that they could be worked on. So that's what we talk about in terms of our formal construction of the fifth province, that it is a metaphor, but we actually see it as a place of work. We used to say there were 2 parts of the fifth province. There was that framing fallen part, and then there was the place between, the place where you can't guarantee what's going to happen. So that idea of emergence again. It's a place of work, but we can't predict what's going to emerge.
Nor can you lay claim to the product.
No, you can't lay claim to the product. There's the participants who lay claim to the product.
something Mo Mullen said. Mo Mullen was the British Secretary for State for Northern Ireland, who was much loved on the island, apart from, but the unions didn't like her too much. But she came to open the Family Trauma Centre in Belfast. I can't remember the year.
12 years ago.
More, maybe. And it was just after the Northern Ireland peace talks. And there were many exciting things happened there, like talks about talks, parallel talks. Lots of metaphors that were coined during that process to enable people who were diametrically opposed to come together. And Arlene, the director of the centre, Arlene Healy up there, was talking about the Family Trauma Centre as a fifth province, and the meaning of Coige, and which means province in Irish, which signifies a fifth, even though there were only 4 provinces. So the trace is in the language. There's no geographical trace really of it left. And she said that she wished that she'd had that metaphor when they were in the middle of the talks. And she came up and she said Coige, Coige, which we had never seen before, which was the double fifth, the double description of Bateson. And it was an English woman who did that. And it always provided those sparkling moments that somebody would make something else of it, so it was always bigger. It became bigger than it actually was, and you never had any idea of where that came from. But that for me was a very inspiring moment when she said Coige, Coige, and as a so-called outsider, and in a language that wasn't her own, and yet she got it immediately. And so I think all of those things are wrapped into our story of the fifth province, and it's kind of hard to know. Latterly it became a more spiritual metaphor for me, but it always really was in that sense of the mystical, or the can't be spoken about, the not yet said, all of those metaphors that have come into our field via Harley and by Lynn and Harry.